Chapter 3598 Love Me Deeply 9 Wu Yun was so angry that he kept summoning little Wu Yun. Unfortunately, it was of no use at all. Wu Yun finally admitted that the cloud wings that he had worked so hard to cultivate had been completely stolen by that little pervert. Fuck, it was intolerable. Even if the cloud wings were no longer his, he could not let this stinky girl have it easy. Today, it must kill this wretched girl. Wu Yun thought of this and countless bolts of lightning struck down at He Xinjiu. It wanted to gather all the power of the lightning into one strike, but it was afraid that if it missed, the situation from a few days ago would happen again. It was really dumbfounded. The dozens of bolts of lightning did not strike He Xinjiu because the heavenly lightning was absorbed by little Wu Yun. Moreover, after little Wu Yun was struck, he still looked very happy. Wu Yun in the sky almost cried. Damn it, he did not want to live anymore. Those were his cloud wings. Now, he was defending that wretched girl against the heavenly lightning bolts. Was there any justice left in the world? He Xinjiu, on the other hand, was overjoyed. She pointed at Wu Yun in the sky and said with a smile, Wu Yun, I knew you loved me. And you loved me so deeply. That's why you gave Wu Yun to me. I love you too. Wu Yun, love my ass. Even if you had Yun Yi, who was always trying to help others, you would not be able to escape today. Although Yun Yi could absorb lightning, it was still very weak. There was a limit to how much it could absorb. Today, you would be dead for sure. Therefore, Wu Yun continued to crack and crack. The earth-shattering array scared Prime Minister Sima and the others so much that they were shivering. Oh God! What did their Majesty do this time? I wonder if their Majesty will be able to keep his little life this time. After a while, the color of the little Wu Yun turned dark purple. It had already reached its saturation state and was unable to absorb any more lightning. Seeing this, He Xinjiu put the little Wu Yun into her storage ring, and then released the little black bird and the little mushroom to continue absorbing the lightning. Wu Yun in the sky was so angry. Why were there so many strange things in this little pervert, and none of them were afraid of being struck by lightning? It was like seeing a ghost. After Xiao He Bird and Xiao Mogu had eaten their fill, He Xinjiu began to release Dehua. Most of Prime Minister Sima and the others had never seen Dehua before. When they saw the big black pig, they were all dumbfounded. Io, their Majesty was really not human. Not only could he slash Wu Yun, he was not afraid of lightning strikes. Even the spirit beast was so abnormal. Wu Yun in the sky was already numb. He just kept hacking. Hack. Hack. In any case, it was always the same recipe in taste. Let's see who would have the last laugh today. This time, it carried a lot of lightning power. They did not believe that it could not kill this smelly girl. Finally, He Xinjia's spiritual power was exhausted, and she could not release Dehua anymore. Therefore, this fellow summoned his flying spirit tool and began to walk the clouds. In order to avoid being teleported to some godforsaken place again, He Xinjiu learned her lesson this time and began to walk the clouds in circles. Wu Yun sneered in his heart. Therefore, he split into several small dark clouds and began to surround He Xinjiu, trying to force her to a place that he had already set his sights on. Who would have thought that when a small dark cloud approached He Xinjia's flying spirit tool and hacked at it, not only did He Xinjia's flying spirit tool not run away, but it also rushed toward the small dark cloud instead. A hook stretched out from the porthole of the flying spirit tool and secretly poked at the small dark cloud. Chapter 3599 will form a team to destroy you in a few days. 9 Even though the little dark cloud kept hacking and hacking, it was still hooked by He Xinjia's hook and slowly approached the flying spirit tool. When Wu Yun saw it, he was scared out of his wits. This damned brat, wasn't she satisfied after taking away one of her cloud wings? She actually wanted to continue abducting her. How outrageous. Wu Yun hurriedly commanded the other little dark clouds to charge toward He Xinjia's flying spiritual artifact. Hundreds of heavenly lightning bolts struck down, and the hook turned into ashes in the blink of an eye. He Xinjia's flying spiritual artifact also fell to the ground with black smoke rising from it. He Xinjiu rushed out of the flying spiritual artifact that was about to crash while sitting on the chopping board. She felt that it was such a pity. She was so close to getting that little Wu Yun. When she had the time, she had to think of a way to turn the 10,000-year-old black iron chain into a hook so that she could hook the little Wu Yun. If the Wu Yun in the sky knew that this guy was not going to give up, it would probably want to smash into a wall. However, it was afraid that He Xinjiu would steal its cloud wings again, so it did not dare to scatter into little Wu Yun to drive it away. It could only gather into a big Wu Yun again and kept hacking at He Xinjia's flying spiritual artifact. He Xinjiu released the flying spirit tools one by one in pain. These were all money. However, fortunately, she was going to make a new profit soon. Not only did she want the spiritual stone load, but the Lihan Palace would also be hers sooner or later. When that time came, she would be able to make a small fortune. This lightning strike lasted for a whole day and 2 nights. He Xinjiu lost dozens of flying spirit tools. This fellow was in so much pain that he gnashed his teeth and calculated in his heart that he would chop down a few small dark clouds sooner or later. Otherwise, it would be difficult to appease the hatred in her heart. The Wu Yun in the sky was even more depressed than He Xinjiu. This time, it had brought almost all the lightning power that it could carry, but it still did not kill this scourge. It had already lost some confidence. Such a scourge could not be killed, right? Unless they formed a team to chop her down. When Wu Yun thought of this, his heart immediately rejoiced. That's right, it was a single cloud, but it could totally gather some other Wu Yun. When the time came, he didn't believe that this smelly girl had so many flying spirit tools that could help her resist the lightning. That's right, let's do it. Smelly girl, just you wait. In a few days, we'll form a team to exterminate you. When Wu Yun thought of this, some of the depression in his heart disappeared, and he flew away valiantly. He Xinjiu looked at the way Wu Yun flew away, and she couldn't help but curl her lips. A defeated cloud actually had the face to show off. Was he crazy? However, this fellow was not in the mood to think about Wu Yun's matter now. He quickly sat down cross-legged and combed through the lightning spiritual power in his body. After a long while, this fellow had almost combed through the tyrannical lightning spiritual power in his body. Only then did he stand up. This time, it might have taken a longer time to strike, so He Xinjia's spiritual power directly jumped from the 1st level to the 5th level. This guy happily adjusted his spiritual power to the 5th level, and then said to a certain god, Prince Charming, did you see that? My little Wu Yun is still useful. At least he can help me withstand the heavenly thunder for a while. Di Baiming did not refute, but said, it's better to cultivate well than anything else. Since there's nothing else, follow me to continue cultivating. He Xinjia's face stiffened, but she still followed a certain someone back to the cabin to cultivate. The guy cultivated obediently for 4 hours, and then his mind became active again. He moved closer to a certain someone and said slyly, Prince Charming, I heard that there's a dual cultivation technique. Why don't we give it a try? Chapter 3600, Little Wu Yun, Cough. Cough. A certain someone who was cultivating almost choked to death by his own saliva. Shut up. Cultivate properly, or else, this lord will not follow you to the Li Hate Palace, a certain someone said coldly. He Xinjiu pursed her lips. Who was she trying to scare? She did not believe that the gigolo would ignore her. However, this guy did not dare to go too far. After all, he had not settled the previous incident with her yet. If she were to be punished for multiple crimes, she would be in big trouble. Therefore, this guy blinked his eyes and said, I haven't slept for 2 nights. I'm really sleepy. I'll go back to my cabin and take a nap. Although Di Biming knew that this guy was going to be lazy, he knew that she would be very tired after being struck by lightning for such a long time. Therefore, he nodded and agreed. Hei Xinjiu immediately went back to her cabin. She first ate and drank, then she washed up briefly and lay on the bed, ready to catch up on sleep. In a daze, this guy suddenly sat up. She had almost forgotten a big thing. When she chopped the cloud, she had planned to use it to make a somersault cloud. She wondered if this thing could bring her to fly. Therefore, this guy could not wait to let out little Wu Yun and said to it, "Come, you land on the ground. After I go up, bring me to fly." Little Wu Yun landed on the ground obediently. Hei Xinjiu sat on it and commanded little Wu Yun to fly up. Little Wu Yun actually flew up in a wobbly manner. Hei Xinjiu sat on the soft little Wu Yun. She felt that it was 10,000 times more awesome than a chopping board. Even immortals could fly on the clouds. Wasn't she an immortal now? This guy was so excited that he didn't know how to show off. Therefore, he pushed open the cabin door and shouted loudly, "Prince Charming, Brother Wu Ji, little lunatic, come and see." Di Biming, Shui Wuji, and Feng, how could this work? How could Wu Yun be used as a flying sword? Hei Xinjiu was extremely smug when she saw the dumbstruck expressions of the three of them. "Prince Charming, didn't you say that little Wu Yun is useless? Now you know that you're wrong, right? Not only can my little Wu Yun resist heavenly lightning, but it can also take me flying. Little madman, open the cabin door. I want to ride little Wu Yun for a ride." And Feng glanced at Di Biming. Seeing that he had no intention of objecting, he opened the cabin door. Hei Xinjiu flew out on the little Wu Yun. He directed the little Wu Yun to fly around and even flew around the flying spirit tool that Prime Minister Sima and the others were on. Prime Minister Sima and the others thought that they were dreaming. Their Majesty actually flew on the clouds. Their Majesty actually sat on the Wu Yun. Their Majesty actually took the Wu Yun as a flying spirit tool. Oh my God, since ancient times, there had never been anyone who could take Wu Yun as a flying spirit tool. Their Majesty was truly a peerless genius. Immediately, everyone's worship of Empress Jiao reached a whole new height, an unsurpassable height. If anyone spoke ill of their Majesty, they would fucking bite him to death. Hei Xinjiu closed her eyes and was feeling the wind as fast as lightning. She completely did not notice that the purple color on Wu Yun was getting dimmer and dimmer. Then, she was miserable. Wu Yun could no longer bear the weight of Hei Xinjiu. She saw Hei Xinjiu leak down from Wu Yun. This guy thought that Wu Yun deliberately dropped down to make her more excited, so he did not open his eyes at all. Chapter 3601, Cloud Fishing Hook. Di Biming, who was inside the flying spiritual device, was so angry that he gritted his teeth. He had no choice but to fly over on his sword and pull Hei Xinjiu into his arms before she fell on her butt. Hei Xinjiu opened her eyes and said unhappily, "Prince Charming, I'm flying perfectly fine. Why are you pulling me?" Di Biming snorted coldly, "Flying perfectly fine? Do you want to fall to your death?" Hei Xinjiu then realized that she was very, very close to a mountain peak, and Wu Yun was huddled up by the side, trembling non-stop. It was obvious that he was a little guilty and very scared. Hei Xinjiu then recalled that the situation just now was not quite right. What was going on? The guy glared at little Wu Yun fiercely and then returned to the flying spiritual artifact. Shui Wuji gloated, "Sister Little Jiu, what are you playing at? Are you deliberately trying to get Di Biming to save the damsel in distress?" Hei Xinjiu glared at him and then dragged little Wu Yun, who was playing dead, over. She asked fiercely, "Tell me, what are you up to? Are you deliberately trying to kill me by falling?" Little Wu Yun trembled in grievance. It was a pity that it was unable to speak with its current intelligence. Otherwise, it would definitely complain about being wronged. It had clearly warned in its spiritual sense. It was the master of Hei Shinjiu who did not notice it. How could it blame it? Hei Shinjiu gave little Wu Yun a good beating. Fortunately, little Wu Yun was soft. Otherwise, he would have long been tortured to death by this guy. This guy was holding his breath. He had gone out to show off, but now, he had lost a lot of face. If it were not for the gigolo saving her, she might have fallen to her death. Shui Wuji could not help but sympathize with Wu Yun. It was really unlucky to have such a master. Hei Shinjiu finally withdrew her evil claws and asked a certain god, Prince Charming, why do you think I fell down so suddenly? Di Baiming said indifferently, I guess it needs the power of thunder and lightning to fly with you. When the power of thunder and lightning is not enough to support your weight, you will naturally fall down. Therefore, spiritual power is the foundation of everything. It's useless if you don't cultivate properly. Come, follow me to cultivate. Hey Shinjiu, why did the pretty boy always turn to cultivation in the end no matter what she said? Prince Charming, I'm sleepy. In going to sleep, Hei Shinjiu yawned and said. Sleepy? Why weren't you sleepy before? Who was showing off outside? Cut the crap and come in with me. Hei Shinjiu curled her lips and followed a certain someone into the cabin to cultivate. After entering the cabin, Hei Shinjiu pretended to cultivate for a while, and her thoughts ran to the little Wu Yun. This little Wu Yun could only take her for a short while. However, if she had many little Wu Yun, or if she could just take in the big Wu Yun, wouldn't she be able to do whatever she wanted? The more she thought about it, the more excited she became. Then, she thought about what happened with the hook. Damn it, if she had a hook that could resist lightning strikes, she would be able to hook a lot of little Wu Yun. Her eyes suddenly lit up. The 10,000-year-old mysterious iron was extremely sturdy. It should be able to withstand the lightning for a while. Although the large kitchen knife and small flames weren't enough to break the 10,000-year-old black iron chain, it should be no problem to slowly shape the front end of the chain into the shape of a hook. Thus, the guy took out a 10,000-year-old black iron chain and began to sharpen the hook. A certain someone opened her eyes and glanced at the guy. She didn't say anything and just let her fiddle with the cloud fishing hook. Chapter 3602, The 8 Monarchs. The next morning, their flying spirit tools flew into the territory under the jurisdiction of the Li Hen Palace. Prime Minister Sima and the others could not help but feel a little nervous. They knew very well that the Li Hen Palace would not hold some spirit stone convention for no reason. It was very likely that it was aimed at their East Phoenix Kingdom. As for why they thought this way, it was because their empress had a calamity-beckoning constitution. Every time she occupied a new territory, she would attract all sorts of envy and jealousy, so they were used to it. They didn't know that their female emperor of Zephyr Nation was currently focused on using a small flame and a large kitchen knife to grind, the cloud fishing hook. The 10,000-year-old dark steel was very sturdy, so this fellow could only make a little progress every day. It would probably take some time before it could be completed. After another 2 days, everyone arrived at the Withered Leaf Wasteland where the Spirit Stone Convention was held in the Li Hate Palace. Hei Shinjiu reluctantly put away the unfinished cloud fishing hook and dismounted the flying spirit tool dispiritedly. Right now, all she could think about was to finish the cloud fishing hook as soon as possible. Then, the next time Wu Yun came, she would be able to fish for little Wu Yun. Therefore, this fellow was really not in a good mood. He looked around with a straight face. The reason why the Withered Leaf Wasteland got its name was because there was a kind of withered leaf grass growing on this wasteland. No matter what time it was, the leaves would always look withered and yellow. If people who did not know about it thought that it was withered grass, in reality, it was living well. There were a total of 9 first-class countries in the southern continent of Towering Sky Continent. They were the East Phoenix Country, Sang Heaven Country, Changtian Country, Xian Heaven Country, Yu Heaven Country, Hao Heaven Country, Zhu Heaven Country, Yen Heaven Country, and Yang Heaven Country. At this moment, they had all arrived. Each of them had chosen a suitable location to set up their tents. Hei Xinjiu narrowed her eyes. With so many countries, it would be quite difficult to make them all submit to her. They could only take it step by step. At the very least, they could not let the Li Hate Palace rope them over to deal with their East Phoenix country. Otherwise, things would be bad. Therefore, this fellow decided to strike first and gain the upper hand. At the very least, he had to create momentum first. Thinking of this, Hei Xinjiu summoned little Wu Yun. Then, the spies sent by the various countries' rulers to gather information were all stunned. Oh God! Was that Wu Yun floating above the head of the Eastern Phoenix country's female emperor of Zephyr? Wu Yun could fly so low. Why did Wu Yun keep following her? Perhaps, they were mistaken. That was a spirit tool refined by the female emperor of Zephyr, but its appearance was very similar to Wu Yun. However, no matter what, Hei Xinjiu became famous in an instant. The other 8 nations' rulers were filled with curiosity towards the female emperor of Zephyr nation who had a dark cloud above her head. Therefore, when Hei Xinjiu sent people to invite these rulers to a banquet that night, no one refused and all of them eagerly came over to attend the banquet. Naturally, they weren't trying to give Hei Xinjiu face, but wanted to see what was going on with that so-called little Wu Yun. Could it really be Wu Yun? Empress Jiu was dressed in luxurious and exquisite red clothes. Her smile was light, and it truly stunned the other 8 country emperors. However, what made them even more fearful was the man in white sitting beside Empress Jiu. Was this the legendary fiancé of the Empress of the Zephyr Nation? The man's cold temperament made them not even dare to look at him. It was as if they could hardly breathe after looking at him. It was no wonder that the female emperor of Zephyr had gone from a third-grade country's daughter with a different surname to a first-grade country's ruler so quickly. It was likely that a large part of this was due to this fiancé. Chapter 3603 Meat Bun Theory. Empress Jiu stood up slightly when she saw the 8 country emperors enter. She naturally did not take these people seriously, so she did not move at all. However, the 8 country emperors did not dare to have any objections. The man in white had a natural dignity that made people submit to him. Hei Xinjiu saw that the 8 country emperors were very afraid of debeiming, and she could not help but heave a sigh of relief in her heart. Fortunately, she had the gigolo as a killing weapon. Otherwise, there would be a lot of open and secret fights when they met. Hei Xinjiu said a few polite words before getting someone to set up a banquet. After a few cups of spirit wine, the 8 country rulers also relaxed a little. They thought to themselves that they were really a little cowardly. They were all in the same position, so what was there to be afraid of? No matter how powerful that white-clothed man was, could he really be disadvantageous to them? Thinking of this, the attitude of the 8 country rulers also became arrogant. According to the size of their country, although the East Phoenix country was in the middle of the 9 countries, its area was the smallest. Moreover, the East Phoenix kingdom's strength was slightly weaker than the other 8 countries, so there was no need for them to be humble. After seeing the change in their expressions, Hei Xinjiu only took a sip of tea. This guy naturally wanted to drink spirit wine, but there was a malefic star sitting next to him, so he didn't let her drink it. Everyone, what do you think of this spirit stone convention? Hei Xinjiu asked with a faint smile. This is naturally a great thing. The Li Hate Palace will distribute the several spirit stone veins they control to the victorious kingdom. This is a great pie falling from the sky. The monarch of the soaring heavens kingdom said with a loud voice. That's right, this is an unquestionable great thing. Of course, if some countries are unable to obtain victory in the competition, then it naturally isn't a good thing, the monarch of the soaring heavens kingdom said with a hint. Everyone present was a smart person, so they naturally knew that the monarch of the Heaven Transformation Kingdom was referring to the East Phoenix Kingdom. After all, the East Phoenix Kingdom did not have any outstanding advantages in any aspect, regardless of the competition event set up by the Li Hen Palace. The East Phoenix Kingdom was unable to obtain a good result. Although the other monarchs did not agree, they clearly agreed with the monarch of the Heaven Transformation Kingdom's words. They all felt that this Spirit Stone Convention was a great good thing. He Xinjiu took another sip of tea, then eagerly glanced at the wine cup that a certain monarch had placed by his side. Only then did she say, "Fortune and misfortune depend on each other, so everything is not absolute." This emperor feels that this Spirit Stone Convention might not be as simple as everyone thinks. The various monarchs were stunned. Firstly, they did not expect this little girl to be so arrogant. Secondly, could this Spirit Stone Convention really be a disaster? He Xinjiu did not beat around the bush. She continued, "To put it in the best possible terms, those Spirit Stone veins originally belonged to our respective countries. However, they were forcibly taken over by the Li Hen Palace for various reasons. This is like someone snatching your meat buns, taking a few bites and then throwing them to you, but you are all extremely grateful, extremely grateful. Most importantly, that meat bun was not thrown directly to you. Instead, it was given to you as a showstopper before being graciously thrown to you. Did you think that was the end of it? Next, it would not be the meat bun. I'm afraid that your houses, fields, and even your lives would be taken away. Unfortunately, you are still happy for the meat bun that you lost and was bitten a few times. Don't you think it's funny?" Chapter 36:04 This was my little Wu Yun. When the 8 monarchs heard He Xinjiu's words, they were stunned for a moment, then their expressions became complicated. They were all intelligent people who understood at a single point. What meat buns, houses, and fields? To put it bluntly, it meant that the Li Hen Palace was using the Spirit Stone vein to make the 9 countries fight each other, while the Li Hen Palace was sitting back and taking advantage of the situation. In the end, they would definitely divide the 9 countries and attack them, taking all of them into their own pockets. Just as their hearts were in turmoil, they heard Empress Jiu say with a smile, "Let's not talk about these troublesome matters. I want to show you something good." As Empress Jiu spoke, she summoned little Wu Yun and had him fly around the tent. If He Xinjiu had not said those words before, the 8 emperors would definitely have asked questions in high spirits. But at this moment, they were not in the mood. Although they felt that this little Wu Yun was very rare, they did not say anything and only gave a few perfunctory compliments. He Xinjiu said with a faint smile, "Do you think that this little Wu Yun of mine is just a spiritual artifact? To tell you the truth, this is a real Wu Yun. It was cut down by me from the Wu Yun." The 8 monarchs' noses almost twisted in anger. Did this little girl think that they were stupid? She even chopped it off from the top of the Wu Yun. Wu Yun had already killed you with a few bolts of heavenly lightning, and she asked you to chop it off. He Xinjiu did not explain further. Instead, she said to the little Wu Yun, "Come, show the monarch the heavenly lightning. Don't chop too much. Just 1 bolt." Wu Yun floated to the center of the field. Boom! A heavenly lightning bolt struck the ground, leaving a scorched hole on the carpet. The 8 emperors stood up and looked at Wu Yun in disbelief. "Oh, my God! Oh, my God!" It was really Wu Yun. That girl did not boast. Was it really Wu Yun who could strike the heavenly lightning bolts? Oh God! How did she do it? 2 days ago, there was a long-lasting thunder. Could it be that this girl slashed Wu Yun at that time? So, it made Tian Dao angry. He Xinjiu waved her hand, and Wu Yun floated above her head obediently. "I didn't lie to you, did I? You might have heard that I am the messenger of the divine phoenix, so Tian Dao naturally dotes on me a lot. This little Wu Yun is a small gift from Tian Dao, and he asked me to use it as a flying spirit tool," He Xinjiu said shamelessly. However, the 8 country emperors believed her. This was because no one had ever obtained Wu Yun. In their eyes, Wu Yun was an item that could send down heavenly lightning. It was an unattainable emissary of Tian Dao. Since the female emperor of Zephyr had obtained Wu Yun, this meant that she was really the favored child of Tian Dao. No wonder she was invincible and became the country emperor of a first-class country. Humans were like this. Once they had a psychological hint, everything could be attributed to the higher-ups. When the 8 monarchs recalled the meat bun theory that He Xinjiu had mentioned earlier, they immediately believed it more. This must be a warning from Tian Dao. There was a high chance that Li Hen Palace truly had ulterior motives. He Xinjiu did not strike while the iron was hot. If the medicine was too strong, it would backfire, she said with a smile, of course. I may have been thinking too much about those meat buns and the like that I mentioned before, so there's no need to take it to heart. However, if the hateful palace sends people to sow discord, everyone should take note. That very likely means that I was right to worry. At that time, it's not too late for us to discuss countermeasures. Chapter 3605 Seeds of Doubt. When the 8 monarchs heard He Xinjiu's words, they actually believed her words even more. Although they tried their best to remain calm on the surface, there was still a bit of worry in their eyes. If the hateful palace really intended to do so, they probably wouldn't have much strength to fight back. After all, the hateful palace had a national master in every country, and they had the secret method to communicate with the worshipping spirit beasts in every country. If they were desperate, what would they do? He Xinjiu acted as if she didn't see the worry in their eyes and said with a smile, "Come on, don't stand on ceremony. Let's drink and eat. These are the specialties of our East Phoenix country, and they taste pretty good." The 8 country emperors were not in the mood to eat. They ate a few mouthfuls of food perfunctorily and then took their leave one after another. He Xinjiu pretended to persuade them to stay and then watched the 8 country emperors leave. Seeing them leave, this guy leaned back on the chair and revealed a faint smile. The seed of doubt had been planted and he was just waiting for it to break out of the ground. He hoped that the Li Hen Palace would not disappoint her and quickly send people to sow discord between them. When the monarch of the Tsang Heaven Kingdom, Emperor Shao Xian, returned to the Tsang Heaven Kingdom, before he could even sit down properly, his subordinates reported that the people from the Li Hen Palace had arrived. Emperor Shao Xian's heart skipped a beat. Could it be that the little girl was right? Although Emperor Shao Xian's heart was beating fast, he did not dare to be negligent and immediately sent someone to invite the people from the Li Hen Palace in. In order to show their respect, the Li Hen Palace had sent an elder Zhu from the Li Hen Palace. After the exchange of greetings, Elder Zhu said with a smile, "Your Majesty Shao Xian, this time, our palace lord has specially rewarded the various countries with a few mineral veins as a reward. Naturally, there will be many capable people. The Tsang Heaven Kingdom has always been good at making talismans. I believe that this time, they will be able to win at least one mineral vein." Emperor Shao Xian said a few words of modesty. After the two of them chatted for a while, Elder Zhu changed the topic and said, "I heard that the female emperor of the East Phoenix Kingdom invited a few emperors to a banquet just now. I wonder what she said." Emperor Shao Xian's eyes narrowed slightly and he laughed loudly. Then, he said, "It's interesting. I don't know where the female emperor of the East Phoenix Kingdom got a spirit tool that looks like Wu Yun, but she showed it to us in a rather smug manner. It's no wonder. After all, she's just a little girl. She naturally wants to show off if she has something good." Upon hearing Emperor Shao Xian's words, a hint of contempt flashed across Elder Zhu's expression. He then said, "So that's how it is. After all, she's not the legitimate ruler of a first-grade country. She can't be compared to the rulers of your countries, so her self-restraint is a little lacking." Emperor Shao Xian did not know what Elder Zhu meant, so he did not continue. He just picked up the teacup and took a sip of tea. Elder Zhu continued, "Your Majesty Shao Xian, although the East Phoenix Kingdom is not big, it is very rich. If the rulers can take the East Phoenix Kingdom, then it will not be comparable to a spirit stone mine." Emperor Shao Xian's heart thumped, as expected, the little girl was right. The Li Hen Palace was indeed trying to sow discord. He wanted to hear what he had to say next. Thus, Emperor Xiao Xian's face showed a troubled expression. Elder Zhu, this is not good, right? After all, the East Phoenix Kingdom is one of the 9 nations, and it is also under the Li Hen Palace's rule. If a war were to break out, it would be very difficult for the Li Hen Palace. Moreover, although the East Phoenix Kingdom is slightly weaker, our Tsang Heaven Kingdom might not be able to take it down in a short period of time. When Elder Zhu heard Emperor Xiao Xian's words, he could not help but feel proud in his heart. Human nature was indeed greedy, and this Emperor Xiao Xian was already tempted. Your Majesty Xiao Xian, your words are wrong. Our Li Hen Palace has never participated in the conflicts between your countries, so our Li Hen Palace will not interfere in the affairs of the East Phoenix Kingdom. Besides, although your Tsang Heaven Kingdom is not confident of taking down the East Phoenix Kingdom, you can still join forces with the other 7 countries to go against the East Phoenix Kingdom. 8 against 1, you will definitely win. Elder Zhu instigated. Emperor Xiao Xian's face showed a pensive look, and then he said, this, I will think about it and then make a decision. Elder Zhu pursed his lips in his heart. He was sure that Emperor Xiao Xian would agree in the end, so he did not say anything more. Instead, he changed the topic and talked about something else. After sending Elder Zhu off, Emperor Xiao Xian ran to the camp of the Changing Heaven Kingdom next door. The Tsang Heaven Kingdom and the Changing Heavens Kingdom had always been on good terms, so Emperor Xiao Xian did not beat around the bush and directly asked, "Has the Li Hen Palace sent people to look for you?" The monarch of the Changing Heavens Kingdom, Emperor Jing Lai, nodded and said, "They have just left for a short while, and all they are doing is instigating me to join forces with the 7 kingdoms to attack the East Phoenix Kingdom." Why? Has the Li Hen Palace sent people to look for you as well? Emperor Xiao Xian nodded, with some doubts. He said, "The situation here is basically the same as yours, but I don't understand why the Li Hen Palace is so scheming to have us deal with the East Phoenix Kingdom. Could it be that they are holding the Spirit Stone Convention just to encourage us to deal with the East Phoenix Kingdom?" Emperor Jing Lai frowned and said, "This is also something that I can't figure out. If they want to encourage us to deal with the East Phoenix Kingdom, they could have sent an envoy to our country. Why would they need to go through all this trouble and even set up a few spirit veins?" The 2 of them couldn't figure out the reason, so they simply sent someone to invite the other 6 monarchs over. When everyone realized that their situations were similar, they couldn't help but start discussing. After discussing for a while, the monarch of the Yutian Kingdom said, recalling what the female emperor of the Zephyr Kingdom said before, "I've raised the Li Hen Palace to play a very big chess game. First of all, since there are prizes in this Spirit Stone Convention, we will definitely fight over who is better and who is worse, which will naturally hurt the harmony between us. When the time comes, after we take down the East Phoenix Kingdom, due to the division of interests, we will definitely widen the gap between us. Who knows, we might even have to fight each other. When the time comes, if we kill each other, wouldn't the Li Hen Palace just sit back and reap the benefits? In fact, the East Phoenix Kingdom is nothing more than a bait to lure us in. The Li Hen Palace has been setting up for so many years, and it is finally time to pull in the net. The situation of our countries is very worrying." That's right. Each of our countries has the imperial advisors sent by the Li Hen Palace. Their status is high, even better than the words of our emperor. Once the Li Hen Palace really wants to make a move, once those imperial advisors incite us, I'm afraid we won't be able to hold on to the throne anymore, Emperor Xiao Xian said worriedly. Emperor Jing Lai snorted coldly, "I've long disliked those imperial advisors. They rely on the Li Hen Palace and the secret method to communicate with the godly beasts to be extremely arrogant. As the saying goes, there is no 2 masters in the country. They are simply the second emperor." The more they talked, the more dissatisfied they became with the Li Hen Palace. This was also because He Xinjiu had successfully brainwashed them previously, so no matter how they looked at it, they felt that the Li Hen Palace had a conspiracy. Everyone, we have talked so much. The most important thing is, how should we reply to the Li Hen Palace? Are we really going to let them order us around to attack the East Phoenix Kingdom? Emperor Xiao Xian said. Everyone was dumbfounded. That's right, even if they knew that this was the Li Hen Palace's scheme, what could they do? Were they going to openly disobey the Li Hen Palace's orders? Although the words that the Li Hateful Palace sent out were tactful, it was clearly an order. Regardless of whether they agreed or not, they could only agree in the end. The 8 monarchs immediately felt extremely stifled in their hearts. They were all monarchs of a country, yet they were actually forced to the point where they had no way out. It was simply depressing to the extreme. Everyone, since that female emperor of Zephyr had sent us over to speak with her, she must have already anticipated the situation of their East Phoenix country. Therefore, her true intention should be to join forces with the 8 kingdoms to deal with the Li Hen Palace. How about this? If the people from the Li Hen Palace come to ask, we will just give them a perfunctory answer. After this Spirit Stone Convention is over, we will discuss our countermeasures. In order to prevent the people from the Li Hen Palace from suspecting us, during the Spirit Stone Convention, our few kingdoms will join forces to target the East Phoenix Kingdom. This is also a good opportunity to test the strength of that female Emperor of Zephyr and her fiancé, Emperor Xiao Xian said. The others naturally understood the underlying meaning behind Emperor Xiao Xian's words. He wanted to see the strength of the East Phoenix Kingdom before deciding whether to submit to the Li Hen Palace or join forces with the East Phoenix Kingdom to deal with the Li Hen Palace. Everyone nodded in agreement and dispersed. A spirit bee that was very similar in color to the dried leaf grass flew out from a crack in the tent and flew to the East Phoenix Kingdom's base. The spirit bee landed in He Xinjia's palm. After He Xinjiu found out about the conversation between the 8 country rulers through her divine sense, she could not help but curl the corners of her mouth. She wanted to test the depth of her relationship with the gigolo. Then she would give it a try. He Xinjiu released the spirit bee in her hand once again. It would be good to hold a meeting in a place like the wild. Occasionally, there would be a spirit bee that would not arouse the suspicion of others. It could be used as a secret agent for her. He Xinjiu decided that this time, she did not need to win everything. Yi Ding had won. She wanted to go on stage with her real identity. This time, she wanted to amaze the entire southern continent and make everyone admire her talent. In the past, she hid her strength and bided her time because there was no guarantee. Now, it was different. She was already the monarch of the first-class country, the East Phoenix country. Moreover, she had a gigolo to protect her. What was there to be afraid of? In addition, her spirit energy was too low. If she did not reveal some of her true abilities, it would be difficult for the other 8 countries' monarchs to trust her. Therefore, she could show off properly. When He Xinjiu thought of this, she wished that she could immediately hold the so-called Spirit Stone Convention so that she could display her abilities. The next day, the Spirit Stone Convention officially began. This was the first time He Xinjiu met the Li Hen Palace's palace master. To be honest, this fellow was very disappointed. She had originally thought that the palace master of the Li Hate Palace must be an outstanding figure. Who would have thought that he was actually just an ordinary-looking middle-aged man? However, that was also true. The palace master of the Li Hate Palace was a puppet of the 9 pavilions. As long as he was obedient, it would be fine. As for what he could do, it didn't matter. However, He Xinjiu felt that the man had an inexplicable sense of familiarity. It was really strange. She had never seen the palace master of the Li Hen Palace before, so how could she feel that he was somewhat familiar? He Xinjiu felt that this was an illusion, so she threw this thought to the back of her mind. The palace master of the Li Hen Palace said a few polite words, and then announced the official start of the Spirit Stone Convention. The host stepped onto the high platform and first introduced the competition items. It was basically no different from the Four Kingdoms convention that Hei Shinjiu had participated in before. It was nothing more than array formations, alchemy, talisman making, weapon refining, beast taming, and spirit power competition. The host emphasized on introducing the prizes of the competition. As soon as the names of the few mineral veins were announced, it immediately caused everyone to cry out in surprise. This time, the Li Hen Palace had put in a lot of capital. The prizes were all mineral veins with abundant spirit stones reserves. Just as everyone was exclaiming in surprise, the host brought up another piece of news that left everyone dumbstruck. It was that the Li Hate Palace would also send people to participate in all the competitions. What? The people from the Li Hate Palace will also participate? Then can our 9 kingdoms still win? That's right. Who doesn't know that the Li Hate Palace has many talents? Who can compete with them? No wonder the Li Hate Palace took out so many mineral veins as prizes. It turns out that they are planning to win them back. Isn't this too much? At this moment, the host continued, although the people of the Li Hate Palace participate in the competition, their results are not included in the prize list. In other words, even if the people of the Li Hate Palace win the first place, the countries that are ranked second can still win the first prize. Everyone was stunned for a moment before they understood the Li Hate Palace's intentions. They wanted to intimidate the 9 nations so that they would not have any rebellious thoughts. Hei Shinjiu curled her lips. The Li Hate Palace had a good plan. Unfortunately, they had met a little expert like her. They could only consider themselves unlucky. The 8 country emperors also understood the Li Hate Palace's intentions. Their hearts trembled. Were they planning to intimidate them? Even though they were indignant, they could only admit that the Li Hen Palace's strength was definitely higher than any of their countries, and the first place in these few battles would probably go to the Li Hen Palace. As expected, in the first array competition, the Li Hen Palace obtained the first place with an absolute advantage. The Tsang Heaven Kingdom's participant obtained the second place, and the Yutian Kingdom obtained the third place. As for the East Feng Kingdom, Yong obtained the 10th place, which was also the last place. Emperor Shao Xian and the others recalled their previous agreement, and each and every one of them said sarcastically, "Emperor Fenghua, your East Phoenix Kingdom is really humble. Don't tell me that you will always be in the last place in the next few matches." That's right. Although our 9 countries rarely compete on the same stage, we have held a few matches in the past, and your East Phoenix Kingdom has always been in the last place. Your results are really stable. Your Majesty Fenghua, I heard that there are a few little girls who have won in your third-grade countries. Did you bring them along this time? However, it's useless even if we brought them along. After all, those little girls are only showing off in third-grade countries. They're not even enough to be compared to first-grade countries. Prime Minister Sima and the others were all red in the face. How could their Majesty stand being humiliated like this in public by the other 8 first-grade countries' rulers? These people had obviously underestimated their emperor's thick skin. They could only see a faint smile hanging on their emperor's face. He said indifferently, "What you all said is right. Our East Phoenix country is a country of etiquette. This competition was deliberately won last place. In the next few rounds of the competition, our East Phoenix country will definitely not concede. All the first places will belong to our East Phoenix country. Just don't cry after losing. The 8 countries' rulers, you're the one who's crying after losing." This female emperor of Zephyr was really shameless. Wasn't she afraid that the wind would blow her tongue out, and all the first places would belong to their East Phoenix country? Even if the East Phoenix country had dog shit and luck that was even better than their 8 countries, how could it possibly be able to compete with the Li Hen Palace? It was really a fool's dream. After everyone had a simple lunch, the second round of the alchemy competition began. The contestants from all the countries stepped onto the competition stage one after another. As there were too many countries participating in the competition, each country was only allowed to send 3 contestants. The host called out the names according to the name list. When he saw the last name, he could not help but be stunned. He paused for a moment before continuing, contestant number 30, the East Phoenix country's glorious female emperor. Emperor Jing Lai, who was drinking tea, spat out a mouthful of tea. What kind of joke was this? The Eastern Feng Kingdom was going to send their female emperor of Zephyr to participate in the pill refining competition. According to the information gathered, this female emperor of Zephyr had been refining pills in the imperial palace for no reason, so much so that there was no way to live in the imperial palace anymore, because this fellow would always burn the pills. This kind of thing was still participating in the competition. Was she planning to lose face in front of everyone in the sky-high continent's southern continent? The other monarchs were also dumbfounded. Was this girl crazy? Wasn't this a show-off? Wasn't she afraid that her prestige would be lowered because of this matter? Prime Minister Sima was stunned at first, then his tears flowed down. No wonder His Majesty had asked him to gather a lot of books on pill refinement. It was actually her intention to participate in the competition. Your Majesty, what are you doing? Are you planning to use the concocted pills to smoke everyone away? Just as everyone was discussing, Empress Jiao slowly stood up from her seat and slowly walked to the bottom of the competition stage. She gracefully leaped onto the competition stage. Her red clothes were fluttering in the wind, and her beauty was unparalleled. For a moment, everyone stopped talking. The host was also stunned for a moment, but he quickly reacted and said loudly, "Since all the contestants have arrived, the alchemy competition will begin immediately." The content of the alchemy competition is the level 26 9 revolutions breaking adversity pill. The time limit is 4 hours, and the final ranking will be based on the rate of completion of the pill, the quality of the pill, and the length of time used. The competition will begin now. When everyone heard the content of the competition, they couldn't help but discuss among themselves. The level 26 9 revolutions adversity pill could be said to be of a very high grade. They didn't know what kind of result these contestants would produce in the end. Of course, most of the people's gazes fell on Empress Jiao. Did this empress really know how to refine pills? What kind of result could she obtain? Very quickly, everyone was dumbfounded and they realized that the empress had raised her claws. The host was stunned and asked, "Contestant number 30, do you have any questions?" "Well, I don't know the formula for the level 26 9 revolutions esoteric pill. Can I flip through a book to look for it?" The host never dreamed that someone would make such a request. He could only look at the judges, who were also staring at each other. The last old man said, "There is no rule that forbids reading books, so contestant no. 30, you can flip through the book and look for the formula." Below the stage, Prime Minister Sima was about to cry. "Your Majesty! You are playing tricks. You can't just say that you don't know how to do it. Why are you flipping through the book? Could it be that you can refine it just by looking at the formula? Forget about you, even if an alchemy master were to remove the new formula, they would still need to test it several times before they could succeed." Emperor Jing Lai and the other 8 monarchs exchanged a glance. This Empress Fenghua was too unruly. Could they trust such a person? It seemed that it would be better for them to seek refuge with the Li Hen Palace. A certain Jiao raised her eyes and glanced at a certain Jiao who was pretending to flip through the books. She silently sighed. This little scoundrel was simply unscrupulous in order to gain the limelight. Couldn't she just refine pills properly? A certain Jiao frowned slightly. It seemed that she had to be talked about tonight. Otherwise, she would have to make even more trouble in the next few competitions. In fact, a certain Jiao had really misunderstood He Xinjiao. He Xinjiao had been too busy these days. She really did not know the formula for the 9 transformation misfortune pill. Fortunately, This fellow had gotten Prime Minister Sima to collect a lot of books on pill refinement and talisman making. He just happened to take it out to sharpen his spear in the nick of time. Cough, cough, even if it wasn't fast, it was still light. Under everyone's stunned gazes, Hei Shinjio took out a thick stack of books from her storage ring and began to rummage through them. Everyone, Prime Minister Sima wished he could shout, "Your Majesty, please be more careful." The book in your hand was a talisman script. He wasn't the only one. Almost everyone's eyes twitched. Could it be that the female Emperor of Zephyr didn't know how to read? The book in her hand had the complete collection of talismans written on the cover. Even if they could tell the difference, they wouldn't be able to find the formula for the 9 transformations Erden. The other contestants on the stage inadvertently caught a glimpse of this fellow's behavior. Other than the contestants from the East Phoenix country, they all scoffed. Was this female Emperor of Zephyr here to embarrass herself? Of course, the 2 contestants from the East Phoenix Kingdom also felt as if their hearts were going to explode. Their Majesty was so incongruous. They had to perform exceptionally well. Otherwise, the last 3 places would all belong to their East Phoenix Kingdom. It was simply too embarrassing. Those contestants quickly regained their focus and began to concentrate on refining the pills. Only Hei Shinjio was still flipping through the books on the table. Jing Lai and the others pursed their lips. This female Emperor of Zephyr was really out of tune. She had lost a lot of face this time. TSK, do you think this female Emperor of Zephyr wants to keep flipping through the books until the end of the competition? Jing Lai said disdainfully. It's really possible. I saw that she thought the topic was very simple. When she went up, she found out that she was refining a level 26-9 revolutions adversity pill, so she found an excuse to pass the time, Emperor Xiao Xian echoed. The other country monarchs also chimed in, that's right, this female Emperor of Fenghua is really embarrassing. She didn't have the ability to go up and show off. Serves her right. Just as they were talking enthusiastically, they suddenly felt a bone-piercing chill. Then, they saw a certain someone looking at them indifferently, but that gaze was as if he was looking at a dead person. Emperor Jing Lai and the others immediately shut up. Oh my God! Why was this man so scary? Just a glance at him made them feel as if they had lost half their lives. At this moment, an hour had passed since the start of the competition. Empress Jiao was still randomly flipping through the books on the table. She even raised her claws and asked midway, "Host, I didn't eat breakfast this morning. Can I eat something?" Xue Wuji almost spat out the tea in his mouth. Haven't eaten. Little sister Jiao, is it really alright for you to lie through your teeth like this? You clearly ate more in the morning than that facial paralysis. The host looked at the judges with a dumbfounded expression. Those judges were already speechless and nodded at him. As a result, Hei Shinjio chewed on a fruit while flipping through the books. She was extremely carefree. Prime Minister Sima and the others were already too ashamed to look at it anymore. Their Majesty was probably having a stroke again. In any case, they were already used to it. They could do whatever they wanted to do. Their Majesty wasn't afraid of losing face, so what was there to be afraid of? Another hour passed. Hei Shinjio finally flipped through all the books on the table before randomly putting them into her storage ring. Everyone thought that she should start refining pills this time. Who would have thought that this guy would take out a recliner and lie down on it, basking in the sun? Di Baiming glared at Hei Shinjio who was on the stage. This little rascal was getting more and more out of control. Hei Shinjio looked in a certain direction as if she had sensed something. When she caught a certain person's cold gaze, she sheepishly put away the recliner and took out the hot pot and pill refining dual-use pill refining furnace. Hei Shinjio looked at the alchemy furnace in her hand and frowned. She saw that there was a gap in the alchemy furnace. It was obviously caused by a bite from the Heaven and Earth Universe furnace. Only then did this guy remember that he had not replenished the alchemy furnace for a long time. No wonder the Heaven and Earth Universe furnace did not let go of this hotpot's alchemy furnace. She scanned her storage ring with her spiritual sense. All that was left was this pill furnace with a gap. The guy frowned, raised a claw to say, "Host, my alchemy furnace is broken, can I borrow an alchemy furnace from others?" "Host, as an alchemist, you don't even know the furnace is broken." Moreover, who could tell him what was going on with the few vegetable leaves hanging on the alchemy furnace? The host could only look at the judges again. Those judges were probably annoyed by Heizinjius' repeated requests. The elderly judge said coldly, "The alchemy furnace is related to the result of the competition. You can't borrow it from others. Just use the cracked alchemy furnace." Hei Shinjio curled her lips. "If you don't want to exchange it, then don't. I can blind all of you even with this broken alchemy furnace." Therefore, this fellow took out a large basin and randomly washed the cracked alchemy furnace before starting to refine the pills. Everyone saw that Empress Jiao didn't care about the order in which the pills were put in. She stuffed the herbs into the cracked alchemy furnace and then watched the show while nibbling on the spirit fruits. Everyone had a look of understanding on their faces. This female emperor of Zephyr was planning to give up everything. However, it was also true. She had found the formula on the spot, and the pill furnace had a gap, so it was impossible for her to successfully refine it. However, Prime Minister Sima was dumbfounded. This scene was too familiar. The pill furnace which had vegetables in it stuffed all the herbs into it. Wasn't this the way of winning all the herbs? Could it be? Prime Minister Sima's eyes narrowed. Could it be that their Majesty was actually pretending to win all the herbs in the previous Four Nations Grand Meeting? There was also Yi Dinjing and Bai Shuiying. Could it be that both of them were their Majesty? Prime Minister Sima thought about it again. When the three winners appeared, their Majesty had found an excuse to stay in the garrison. Moreover, the expressions of those three winners were very similar to their Majesties. Prime Minister Sima stared at Empress Jiao on the stage with his mouth agape. He had no words to describe his Majesty in his heart. Thousands of words converged into one sentence. His Majesty was simply too powerful to be human. When Emperor Jing Lai and the others saw the expression of Prime Minister Sima as if he had seen a ghost, they couldn't help but look at each other. They wanted to mock him, but when they saw a certain someone, they immediately swallowed their words. At this moment, the crowd let out a cry of surprise. They saw that Empress Jiao had actually opened the lid of the cauldron and added a few more medicinal herbs into it. Could it be that this female emperor of Zephyr didn't know that opening the lid of the cauldron midway was a major taboo in alchemy? However, it was also true. Her cauldron had a gap to begin with, so it didn't matter whether she opened the lid or not. As time passed, the medicinal fragrance on the stage became more and more intense. Everyone's gaze shifted from Empress Jiao to the three competitors from the Li Hate Palace. Everyone felt that the first to complete the refinement would definitely be the three participants from the Li Hate Palace. As for the remaining participants, they could only compete for the fourth place. Among the three participants from the Li Hate Palace, the oldest, Zhong Mao, was even more confident. He scanned his surroundings and felt that his progress was the fastest. The first place belonged to him. Just as Zhong Mao was about to signal for him to complete the refinement, he heard a crisp voice, "Host, I've completed the refinement. Remember, I'm the first one to complete it." Zhong Mao followed the voice and looked over, his nose almost going crooked from anger. The one who raised her claws was the female emperor of Zephyr. Was it her? And the refinement was completed? She was purely trying to stir up trouble for him. Forget it. In any case, the final assessment of the results didn't just depend on the length of time. Everyone looked at Empress Jiao. However, Almost everyone thought that Empress Jiao was just fooling around and that it was impossible for her to successfully refine it. Prime Minister Sima's forehead and palms were covered in sweat. On one hand, he was nervous, on the other hand, he was excited. His Majesty might really succeed in refining it. After all, when her spiritual power was so low, she was able to completely defeat other people. This time, she should be able to do it too, right? On the stage, one after another, contestants indicated that they had finished refining. The host memorized the sequence one by one, and his gaze would occasionally glance at Empress Jiao in the corner. This was because this fellow was currently sitting on a chair, leisurely eating melon seeds. He didn't seem like he was here to compete, but rather, he seemed like he was here to watch a show. Finally, the stipulated time limit was up. The judges started to assess the contestants' results from contestant number 1. Zhong Mao was contestant number 1. Contestant number 1, Li Hengong Zhong Mao, has a 100% pill success rate, 7 high-grade pills, 3 middle-grade pills, and 44 points. The moment the host's words left his mouth, everyone was in an uproar. Oh my God! A 100% pill success rate? This was too unbelievable. Moreover, the high-grade elixirs accounted for 70% of the total. This was definitely the best. Jing Lai Di and the others looked at each other, their eyes filled with shock and bitterness. The Lihate Palace was much stronger than their country's. Not to mention anything else, just their alchemy skills were not a little inferior. Only He Xinjiu curled her lips. Not to mention anything else, this point was unlucky. 44 points. She was dead. As expected, other than the 2 contestants from the Lihate Palace who had decent results, the majority of the remaining contestants had an 80% success rate. Among them, there were only about 4 or 5 high-grade pills. The difference between them and Zhong Mao was very obvious. Zhong Mao's face was very proud. The people from these countries were not on the same level as the Lihate Palace. The Lihate Palace could easily trample them under their feet. There was only one contestant left on the stage whose results had yet to be announced, and that was Empress Jiao, who was currently munching on melon seeds. Empress Jiao saw the judges walking over. This fellow kept the melon seeds and chairs into his storage ring, then stood in front of the operating table with his head held high and chest puffed out, waiting for the judges to announce the results. When the judges saw He Xinjia's confident look, the corners of their mouths couldn't help but twitch. Where did this Empress of Zephyr's confidence come from? The referees had already prepared for the pill furnace to be filled with only a piece of charred medicinal liquid. However, when one of the referees lifted the lid of the pill furnace, he widened his eyes in horror and didn't speak for a long time. When the other referees saw the strange look on his face, they also came over and were all stunned on the spot. When Zhong Mao saw this, he pursed his lips. These referees were really rare and strange. He reckoned that the Zephyr female emperor had burned the medicinal liquid. What was there to see? It was more important to quickly announce that he was first place. Thus, he coughed and said, "Host, what is the result of the female emperor of Zephyr? It can't be a 0, right?" The judges were shocked by Zhong Mao's voice and only then did they regain their senses. However, no one paid any attention to him. Instead, they looked at the calm and composed Empress Jiao in shock. "Your Majesty Fenghua, I didn't expect your alchemy skills to be so superb. You really don't show your true colors," the elderly judge praised. If an ordinary person heard such words, they would definitely say something modest. However, Empress Jiao was obviously not a modest person. This fellow sighed and said, "Actually, I can do better. It's just that the alchemy furnace has a gap, so my results are just as or so now." The judges, if it was before, these judges would have scolded this Fenghua female emperor for bragging about her shamelessness. However, in front of the dazzling results, this kind of Zhang Yang had become a display of confidence. Each and every one of them was praising her as if they did not care about money. The audience below the stage did not understand what was going on. Why did it sound like the female emperor had really succeeded? Moreover, her results seemed to be pretty good. When Zhong Mao saw that no one was paying attention to him, he could not take it anymore. He raised his voice and asked again, "Host, what is the result of the female emperor?" The host had long disliked this arrogant Zhong Mao. He thought to himself, "I have seen people who are anxious, but this is the first time I have seen someone who is so anxious to slap his own face." He asked the elderly judge in a low voice, and then announced loudly, "Contestant number 30, the Eastern Phoenix country's female Emperor of Magnificence, has a 100% completion rate, 3 superior grade pills, 7 superior grade pills, and 65 points." Boom! Both on and off the stage were instantly in an uproar. A 100% completion rate wasn't scary. What was scary was that this female Emperor of Magnificence had actually refined 3 superior grade pills. And with that broken pill furnace? Heavens, they weren't afraid of not knowing the goods, but they were afraid of comparing goods. Previously, they had thought that Zhong Mao from the Li Hen Palace was simply a peerless genius, but now that they saw him, bah! He wasn't even fit to carry the shoes of the female Emperor of Zephyr. And he even said that the female Emperor of Zephyr had scored 0 points, how shameless. Those people from the East Foam Kingdom were all beaming with red light, their heads held high and their chests puffed out. Did you see that? Their Majesty was indeed awesome. What was wrong with the formula? What was wrong with eating fruits while refining pills? What was wrong with using a pill refining furnace with a gap? Wasn't the first pill refining furnace their Majesty's? You stupid humans don't know what their Majesty is capable of. What's wrong with these words? Their Majesty seems to be a human as well. Emperor Jing Lai and the others were also shocked. That girl was actually so powerful. Could it be that she was looking for the formula and eating fruits on purpose? Was she just teasing them? As Empress Jiu's points were very high, the total points of East Phoenix Country jumped to the first place in the alchemy competition, causing the people of East Phoenix Country to cheer and cheer. Prime Minister Sima was practically in tears. Their Majesty could always bring them hope and surprise in a desperate situation. Having such a Majesty was a great blessing for East Phoenix Country. Although He Xinjiu was very proud in her heart, she still pretended to be unperturbed as she walked down the stage and returned to her seat. However, after this fellow sat down, he stretched out his claw and poked a certain honored guest's hand. When a certain honored guest looked at her, this fellow smiled at a certain honored guest, feeling very proud. When a certain honored guest saw He Xinjiu's smug little appearance, his heart trembled. He sensed that the seal had loosened again, so he quickly held his breath and focused his mind, not looking at He Xinjiu anymore. The crowd's discussion had not yet subsided. Some people even felt that the reason why He Xinjiu was able to refine a transcendent-grade medicinal pill was probably due to a gap in the pill refining furnace. Therefore, not long after, towering sky continent Southern Continent began to become popular with a pill refining furnace with a gap. As the sky gradually turned dark, the host announced that the competition for today was over and that the competition would continue the next day. The crowd dispersed and He Xinjiu returned to the East Phoenix Country's base. Naturally, she was blindly worshipped by Prime Minister Sima and the others. At this moment, in the eyes of the people of the East Phoenix Country, their empress was simply omnipotent. As long as their empress wanted to, she could even get her hands on Wu Yun, much less anything else. Whoever went against their empress would be courting death. Alright, Empress Jiu had successfully developed her subjects into her hardcore fans. After dinner, just as He Xinjiu was about to say something, a certain someone said with a slightly gloomy face, "You should have a good competition when you are competing. Why are you always playing tricks? Aren't you afraid of making things worse?" He Xinjiu looked aggrieved. "I'm not playing tricks. I really don't know the formula of the 9 transformation breaking yuden. A certain someone snorted coldly. What about eating fruits and cracking melon seeds? Hei Shinjo touched her nose guiltily. This isn't considered a trick, right? I'm just killing time. Those people are too weak. If I do my best, I'll beat them until they have nothing left to live for. A certain someone, don't participate in the next competition. You've achieved your goal anyway. It's not necessarily a good thing to be in the limelight, a certain someone said in a deep voice. Although Hei Shinjo looked reluctant, she could only say when she saw the gloomy expression of a certain someone, all right, if you don't want to participate, then don't. I'm happy to be at ease. The next morning, the talisman competition was the first to be held. Although Hei Xinjia's hand was itchy, she didn't go on stage to compete. Instead, she played with a certain someone's finger casually. This guy looked at a certain finger with distinct joints and cursed in his heart. Damn it, it was really unfair. It was fine that the gigolo was good-looking, but why was his hand so good-looking? Fortunately, she made the first move and got the gigolo. Otherwise, who knew which little vixen would benefit from it? This guy suddenly remembered something. The seal of the gigolo was broken bit by bit. Would there be a fiancé or something like a white lotus in the future? Hei Shinjo suddenly felt uncomfortable when she thought of this. She took out Di Biming's voice transmission talisman and asked, Prince Charming, will there be a fiancé or something like that when you remove the seal in the future? A certain being felt the vibration of the voice transmission talisman. When he saw that it was sent by Hei Shinjo, he could not help but be speechless. She was clearly right beside him, yet she was still sending out the voice transmission talisman. Was she bored? A certain being sent his spiritual sense in. When he heard Hei Xinjia's words, his face could not help but stiffen. Why did she think of such a weird question when she was just watching the competition? Although a certain being did not want to pay attention to her, when he saw that she was looking at him with puppy-like wet eyes, he could only use his spiritual sense to say, no, I was not interested in women in the past. Hearing the words of a certain someone, Hei Shinjo felt relieved at first, then her eyes revealed a gossipy light. Was she not interested in women? Could it be that the gigolo liked men in the past? Although a certain someone didn't know what this guy was thinking, he knew that she was not thinking of anything good when he saw her sinister smile. A certain someone frowned slightly and said in a cold voice, I have no intention of starting a family in the past, so you don't have to worry about my fiancé or anything like that after I unseal it, because you are the only exception. Hei Shinjo was stunned, and then a trace of sweetness rose in her heart. She picked up a certain someone's hand and kissed it. Prime Minister Sima coincidentally saw this scene. The old man was so embarrassed that his face turned red. His Majesty is too unrestrained. His Majesty, this is under the eyes of everyone. No matter how fierce you are, you have to be careful. He forced himself to look at the competition stage, so as not to be scared by His Majesty's shamelessness. At this moment, the talisman seal competition on the competition stage was ongoing. The time limit was still 4 hours. The prescribed topic was the level 20,000 feet Earth Shield Talisman. The final result was calculated by the number and quality of the talisman seals. The 3 contestants from the Li Hen Palace were the fastest. They had each completed 1,000 feet Earth Shield Talisman. The remaining 9 countries were all about the same speed. However, Prime Minister Sima knew that their East Phoenix country's talisman-making skills were slightly weaker than the other countries. This round of talisman-making competition would most likely be at the bottom. Thinking of this, the old man could not help but look at Empress Jiu, who was throwing dog food at him. Sigh, His Majesty clearly had a super talent in talisman-making, so why didn't he participate in this round of talisman-making competition? Could it be that he wanted to get intimate with young Master D? He really only loved handsome men and didn't love the country. Hei Xinjiu saw that a certain someone's face was a little pale and knew that she had probably loosened the seal on the gigolo again. This guy could only let go of a certain someone's hand in embarrassment. This guy was really helpless in his heart. She didn't do anything. Wasn't it just a few kisses on the gigolo's hand? Wasn't it just a few flirtatious glances? Why did the seal loosen? The gigolo's self-control was really getting worse and worse. If a certain someone knew what this guy was thinking, he would probably strangle her to death. Hei Xinjiu could no longer be intimate with a certain someone, so she could only look at the competition stage. She had never drawn a level 20,000 feet Earth Shield talisman before, but when she was looking for a prescription yesterday, she took a glance at it. She estimated that she could easily draw a transcendent grade talisman. It was a pity that the pretty boy did not allow her to go on stage. Her talent could only be covered in dust. 4 hours later, the talisman competition ended. The final result was as everyone had expected. 3 contestants from the Li Hate Palace had once again taken the top 3 spots, and 3 contestants from the East Phoenix Kingdom had tragically won the last 3 spots. Emperor Jing Lai and the others looked at Empress Jiu with gloating expressions. However, they didn't dare to say anything because of a certain someone. They only used their expressions to express their disdain. Hei Xinjiu was so angry. Fuck, if it weren't for the pretty boy stopping her, she would have used her results to torture these scum to death. Just as Hei Xinjiu was fuming with anger, she heard a contestant from the Li Hate Palace on the competition stage say arrogantly, "It's not that I, Zhuiji, don't speak well. It's just that your 9 nations are really too terrible. Especially the East Phoenix country. The total points of the 3 of them combined are not even greater than mine alone. It's simply ridiculous." The faces of the 3 East Phoenix countries' contestants turned red, especially the face of one of the men. When he was making talismans, he might have been too nervous. The first few talismans could not be successfully drawn, and in the end, he only managed to draw 2 talismans. That was why the East Foam Kingdom's points were so ugly. Zhu Yiji saw the expressions of the 3 contestants from the East Foam Kingdom and could not help but feel even more proud. Isn't your East Foam Kingdom's female Emperor of Zephyr very powerful? Why didn't she participate in the talisman-making competition this time? In my opinion, yesterday's alchemy competition was just a blind cat meeting a dead rat. Your East Foam Kingdom is just a bunch of trash. Hei Xinjiu was already filled with anger, but when she heard Zhu Yixi's words, her small face instantly darkened. Damn it, she had originally planned to keep a low profile, but now it seemed that some people really deserved a beating. Hei Xinjiu suddenly stood up, and instantly, everyone's gazes turned to her. She sneered, "Zhuiji? A pig? Your name really matches your name. The Lihan Palace has always taken good care of our 9 nations, and we have always respected the Lihan Palace. I didn't expect that you didn't take our 9 nations seriously at all. I am, after all, the monarch of the East Phoenix Kingdom, and you have been slandering me on the stage. It seems that our 9 nations don't have any status in the eyes of the Lihan Palace, which is really disappointing." Emperor Jing Lai and the others were actually feeling very uncomfortable. The people of the hateful palace were too arrogant. The fox mourns the death of the hare. If the hateful palace could treat the female emperor like this, their situation would probably not be any better when the East Phoenix Kingdom was destroyed in the future. Zhu Yixi's face immediately turned pale. Although the hateful palace indeed looked down on the 9 kingdoms, there were some things that could not be said openly. He rolled his eyes, he tried to explain, "Your Majesty Fenghua, you have misunderstood what I meant. What I said just now was only directed at the talisman-making competition. The truth is right here. Your East Phoenix country's talisman-making results are really a little shabby. Don't tell me that you won't allow others to say it." Everyone knew that Zhu Yiji was secretly changing the concept and twisting the facts, but no one made a sound because no one was willing to provoke the Lihan Palace. Yun Chujio coldly glanced at Zhu Yizhi, who was fearless, and said indifferently, "Oh. Only for the talisman-making competition? Then if my talisman-making skills are better than yours, does it matter if I kill you?" Zhu Yizhi didn't expect Yun Chujio to say such a thing. He immediately became unable to back down. If he didn't agree, then what he said before was a slap to his face. If he agreed, what if the female emperor of Fenghua really defeated him? Wouldn't his life be in danger? Before he could decide whether to agree or not, Yun Chujio had already leaped onto the stage and said with a sneer, "Didn't you just say that I was a blind cat that met a dead rat? Why? Are you even worse than a dead rat?" Zhu Yizhi was provoked by He Xinjiu and couldn't hold back. He thought to himself that he had never heard that the Zephyr female emperor knew how to make talismans. She was probably just trying to scare him. Moreover, he still had a trump card. Even if the Zephyr female emperor was very good at making talismans, she wouldn't be a match for him. Zhu Yizhi thought of this and his expression became arrogant again. "Alright, since Her Majesty wants to compete, I'll play along. However, the content of our competition isn't a level 20,000 feet earth shield talisman, but a level 23 heaven-shaking explosive talisman. Does Her Majesty Fenghua dare to compete?" The crowd below the stage immediately burst into a clamor as they discussed animatedly. A level 23 heaven-shaking explosive talisman. Isn't this grade a little too high? Most people probably haven't even seen it before, let alone drawing it. That's right, even in places that specialize in selling talismans, it's very difficult to find a level 23 heaven-shaking explosive talisman. This is a talisman master's most prized treasure. Female Emperor Zephyr is going to fall for this. She definitely won't dare to agree because she will definitely lose. He Xinjia's heart felt like it was going to explode. Among the books that Prime Minister Sima had collected for her, the highest level of talismans was only level 21. She had never seen a heaven-shaking explosive talisman before, let alone know how to draw one. He Xinjiu was very melancholic in her heart. Just accept it. She didn't know how to draw a level 23 heaven-shaking explosive talisman, but if she didn't accept it, wouldn't it be a slap to her own face? If she just rolled back to the viewing platform in dejection, how would she continue to survive in the future? How would she still be able to show off in front of the subjects of the East Phoenix Kingdom in the future? Zhu Yizhi saw that He Xinjiu was silent for a long while and his face revealed a smug expression. Why? Does Her Majesty Fenghua not dare to accept the challenge? So, it seems like what I said before was right. At least in terms of talisman-making techniques, your East Phoenix Kingdom is all trash. A stern look flashed across He Xinjia's eyes. This Zhu Yizhi deserved to die. She curled the corners of her lips. Who said that I don't dare to accept you? I just want you to live a little longer. Since you want to die so badly, I will accept it now. Zhu Yizhi curled his lips. He was certain that Yun Chujio was trying to put on an act because very few people knew about the drawing of the level 23 heaven-shaking explosive talisman. He had only learned it by chance, so this female Emperor of Zephyr was definitely going to lose. The host was dumbfounded. Was she really going to compete? Just as he was at a loss, an elder from the Lihan Palace walked down the stage and nodded at him, indicating that their palace master had agreed to the competition. Hence, the host said, the time limit is 4 hours. The content of the competition is the heaven-shaking explosive talisman. The final result will be calculated based on the quantity and quality of the completed talisman. The competition will begin now. Yun Chujio stood behind her own operating table. Although she looked indifferent on the surface, her heart was like an ant on a hot pan. What the hell? What should she do? She did not know how to draw the heaven-shaking explosive talisman at all. Moreover, there was no such thing as the heaven-shaking explosive talisman in the world. How could she know the drawing method of this heaven-shaking explosive talisman? Previously, the heavenly Tao Cliff had given her a talisman seal inheritance. Unfortunately, it was a heaven-grade talisman seal, and there was no such low-level talisman seal drawing technique as the heaven-shaking explosive talisman. At this moment, Zhu Yizhi had already started drawing the heaven-shaking explosive talisman. He looked very nervous, afraid that he would fail if there was even the slightest mistake. When the audience below the stage saw that He Xinjiu was still standing there calmly, with no intention to start drawing at all, someone curled his lips and said, "This female emperor of Zephyr Nation definitely doesn't know how to draw. If that's the case, why did she bring up the competition? Isn't this slapping herself in the face?" That's right. The East Phoenix country's results aren't good to begin with. Don't tell me that others aren't allowed to say it. This female emperor of Zephyr Nation is really asking for trouble. In a while, if this female emperor of Zephyr Nation can't draw a single picture, won't it be very awkward? Therefore, people should be self-aware so as to avoid embarrassing themselves. When the subjects of the East Phoenix Kingdom heard their words, they were immediately filled with righteous indignation and refuted with full confidence, "Pui. Don't spout nonsense. Our Majesty is omnipotent, what's a mere heaven-shaking explosive talisman? Our Majesty will draw 10 or 8 pieces and smash that pig to death. Right, Our Majesty will definitely win. Our Majesty has never failed before. In a while, we will let you know how powerful Our Majesty is." Exactly. The reason why His Majesty hasn't started drawing yet is to show His grace. Let the pig draw a few pictures first, and then His Majesty will draw again so that he will be convinced of his defeat. He Xinjiu pricked up her ears to hear the words of her brain-dead fan, and her heart felt like a beeping dog. Where did their confidence come from? She really didn't know how to draw this time. First, let that Zhu Yizhi draw to show his grace. Grace my ass. She was the one who didn't know how to draw. Just as He Xinjiu was cursing in her heart, a thought came to her mind. That's right. Let that Zhu Yizhi draw a picture first. Wouldn't she be able to learn how to draw? However, she and that Zhu Yizhi were arranged at both ends of the competition stage. Even if she stretched her neck, she wouldn't be able to see the contents of Zhu Yizi's drawing. This fellow blinked his eyes and left his operating table with his hands behind his back. He walked in front of Zhu Yizi's operating table and shamelessly stole a picture. However, Zhu Yizhi didn't know the true purpose of this fellow. After all, learning and selling the talisman on the spot wasn't suitable for talismans. Even the most talented person wouldn't be able to learn it after reading it once. Furthermore, this was a level 23 heaven-shaking explosive talisman. Zhu Yizhi felt that Yun Chujiu wanted to disturb him while he was making the talisman. He sneered in his heart. He had always been very calm. Not to mention the female emperor of Zephyr who was watching from the side. Even if she made a big fuss, she wouldn't be able to affect him. The onlookers had the same thoughts as Zhu Yizhi. They couldn't help but scoff. This female emperor of Zephyr Nation didn't know how to draw, so she went to disturb Zhu Yizi's talisman making. She was really wicked. The brainless fans of the East Phoenix Kingdom said excitedly, "See? Our Majesty is really too smart. This is called strategy. What do you know? Your Majesty, you can't just stand there like this. If you scold that Zhu Yizhi a little, he won't be able to complete the talisman making. Right, Your Majesty, why don't you shout a few times to scare him to death? Empress Jiu, her subjects were most likely led astray by her, right?" He Xinjiu ridiculed in her heart as she watched Zhu Yizi's talisman-making process. This level 23 heaven-shaking explosive talisman was indeed very complicated. Beads of sweat were already oozing out from Zhu Yizi's forehead. Clearly, he was having a hard time. Almost an hour had passed, and Zhu Yizhi had finally completed a heaven-shaking explosive talisman. However, it was only a low-grade one. Zhu Yizhi wiped the sweat on his forehead and glanced at Hei Xinjiu in disdain. He snorted and said, "Do you think that you will affect me by distracting me like this? Dream on." Hei Xinjiu curled her lips. "Distract you? I just want to see how good you are. If I wanted to cause trouble, I wouldn't have been so quiet. Now, it seems that your level is really not good. You spent a long time to draw a low-grade talisman. You are really stupid and stupid." Just as Zhu Yizhi was about to retort, he saw Empress Jiao jump back to her control panel with a whoosh. He could only snort coldly and continue to draw the talisman. After Hei Xinjiu returned to her control panel, she took out the talisman brush and started to draw the talisman. After a quarter of an hour, Hei Xinjiu casually placed the completed talisman aside and continued to draw. The people below the stage were very curious. How did the Zephyr female emperor finish drawing a shocking explosive talisman so quickly? How was this possible? Many people guessed that the talisman drawn by the Zephyr female emperor was definitely not a shocking explosive talisman. Perhaps it was some low-level talisman. After all, it took Zhu Yizhi almost an hour to finish drawing one. How could she finish it so quickly? Hei Xinjiu drew 5 talismans and put away the talisman pen calmly. Then, she took out the recliner and sat on it, munching on melon seeds. The audience felt that Yun Chujiu did not know how to draw the heaven-shaking explosive talisman at all. She only drew 5 talismans randomly to deal with it. This time, she really slapped herself in the face. Zhu Yizhi used the corner of his eye to glance at Hei Xinjiu leisurely munching on melon seeds. He couldn't help but twitch his lips. It seemed that this female emperor of Zephyr had given up completely. Finally, the 4-hour deadline came to an end. The host quickly announced Zhu Yizi's results. Lihen Palace's Zhu Yizhi has successfully drawn 4 heaven-shaking explosive talismans, 2 of which are low-grade, 2 of which are middle-grade, and 10 points. The crowd below the stage cried out in surprise. Although it sounded like the quality of the talismans wasn't high, one had to know that these were level 23 talismans. 4 of them had all been successfully drawn, and 2 of them were middle-grade talismans. This was already very, very impressive. At this moment, everyone was certain that Zhu Yizhi had won. As for the female emperor of Zephyr, although she had drawn several talismans, they were definitely other low-grade talismans. Her points would definitely be 0. Although those brainless fans of the East Phoenix Kingdom were still bragging, they were more or less panicking in their hearts. Were the talismans drawn by their Majesty earth-shattering explosive talismans? Would their Majesty fail miserably this time? Hei Xinjiu put away the melon seeds and the reclining chair. Then, she calmly looked at the judges and hosts who were walking over and slowly said, "He only has 10 points. It seems that I have overestimated him. If I had known earlier, I wouldn't have drawn 5. I would have just drawn 3. The corners of the judges and hosts' eyes twitched. Just draw 3. She really dared to say that. If drawing 3 exceeded Zhu Yizi's points, then she would have drawn at least 1 upper grade and 2 middle grade. Was she talking nonsense? However, when they saw the 5 talismans on Hei Xinjia's table, they were all dumbfounded. After a long while, the host announced loudly, "The glorious female emperor of the East Phoenix country has successfully drawn 5 heaven-shaking explosive talismans. They are all upper-grade talismans, with 25 points." After the host finished speaking, the audience fell silent. It was obvious that they had not reacted in time. However, it was immediately followed by an uproar. This was especially true for the hardcore fans of the East Feng Kingdom. Their faces were flushed red, and they wanted nothing more than to roar to express the excitement in their hearts. Ha ha ha! Did you see that? Her Majesty Fenghua is indeed worthy of being the peerless female emperor who can topple kingdoms and cities. Who can be more powerful than Her Majesty? Who else? Who else? Once Her Majesty makes a move, who else can compete with her? That pig said that our emperor is a blind cat who met a dead rat. Pooey. He is a short-sighted fool. He has no right to talk about our emperor. Zhu Yizhi did not believe the host's words at all. He staggered to He Xinjia's operating table and saw the impeccable 5 talismans on it. He immediately sat down on the ground. He had lost, completely lost. He Xinjiu looked at him contemptuously and said indifferently, "I'll give you 2 paths. One path is to kneel down and apologize to the 9 countries, especially the subjects of the East Phoenix country. The second path is to die." Zhu Yixi's face was pale and his body was soaked in cold sweat. He turned his gaze to the Li Hate Palace's stands for help. Yun Chujiu snorted coldly. "What? Do you think the palace master of the Li Hate Palace will plead for you? Your vicious words have already destroyed the relationship between the Li Hate Palace and the 9 countries. How can the Li Hate Palace protect you? Hurry up and choose a path. I'm still in a hurry to eat lunch. I don't have the time to waste here with you." Zhu Yizhi saw that no one from the Li Hate Palace had made an appearance and knew that he had already been abandoned. Naturally, he would not apologize. If that was the case, he would not be able to survive in the Li Hate Palace in the future. He decided to forcefully leave. He did not believe that the female emperor of Zephyr could really kill him in front of everyone. Moreover, even if she really dared to kill him, she was not his match. Thinking of this, Zhu Yizhi jumped off the stage and prepared to return to the stands of the Li Hate Palace. He didn't believe that the female emperor of Zephyr would be able to chase him to the stands of the Li Hate Palace. He Xinjiu was clearly dumbfounded. She didn't expect that Zhu Yizhi would be so shameless. Was he planning to run away? The crowd below the stage also didn't expect such a result. For a moment, they stared blankly at Zhu Yizhi as he walked towards the stands of the Li Hate Palace. At this moment, someone saw a ray of light shoot towards Zhu Yizhi. Immediately after, they heard Zhu Yixi's miserable cry and then fell to the ground. He had actually died. Those who were close to Zhu Yizhi discovered that there was a crystal-clear ice arrow stuck between Zhu Yixi's brows. Who did this? Although most people did not know who had killed Zhu Yizhi, Emperor Jing Lai and the others saw it clearly. All of them kept quiet out of fear. Oh God! Fortunately, they didn't offend the little girl and her fiancé. Otherwise, this fiend would have taken their lives with a raise of his hand. He was too powerful. He Xinjiu saw that Zhu Yizhi was already dead. Naturally, this guy knew that it was Di Baiming who did it. However, this guy took the opportunity and said, "Did you all see that? This Zhu Yizhi has already lost, but he doesn't admit it. Therefore, he has been punished by the heavens. Therefore, you must keep your promises in the future, or you will be struck by lightning." Boom! A bolt of lightning descended from the sky and struck Zhu Yixi's body. He Xinjiu, everyone, He Xinjiu looked up at the sky. There were no clouds in the sky, and the sky was clear as water. It was as if the lightning just now was an illusion. Oh my God, did her jinx skill resurface? The onlookers looked at He Xinjiu with fear. They had heard that the Zephyr Queen was the messenger of the divine phoenix. Now that they looked at her, she was indeed extraordinary. That Zhu Yizhi died because he did not keep his promise. He was struck by lightning after he died. How tragic. It seemed that it was better for them not to offend this female emperor of Zephyr in the future. Otherwise, they would either be shot to death by an ice arrow or be struck to death by lightning. Seeing this, Empress Jiu was very pleased with herself. She said to the dumbfounded host, "Don't forget to add my results to the total score of our East Phoenix Seal competition. Pan, the N is 0 VE 1. The host, is it really good for you to be so shameless? Do you think the other 8 countries are all fools?" Seeing that he didn't say anything, He Xinjiu curled the corners of her lips. Why? Are you afraid that the other 8 countries will have an opinion? Your Majesty Jing Lai, do you have an opinion? Emperor Jing Lai and the others shook their heads like rattle drums. What a joke! How could they dare to have an opinion? That fiend was sitting right next to them. If they had any objections, it might have directly taken their lives. Seeing that Jing Lai Di and the others had no objections, the host looked in the direction of the spectator stand of the Li Hate Palace. Seeing that no one had any objections, he announced the results again. Because the East Phoenix Kingdom had additional points, they were immediately ranked ahead of the other 8 kingdoms. He Xinjiu returned to her seat in satisfaction. She hugged a certain someone's arm affectionately and said, "Prince Charming, I've realized that you're becoming more and more handsome. I'm going to love you to death. Prince Charming, although I've only been away for a short while, I've missed you so much. I've missed you so much." The corners of Jing Lidi and the others' mouths twitched. This girl was really thick-skinned to say such mushy words in public. A certain venerable hummed in agreement and then moved He Xinjiu's claws away, because his little heart started beating violently again, and the seal began to loosen again. A certain venerable thought that He Xinjiu would definitely pout to express her dissatisfaction, but he didn't expect He Xinjiu to say thoughtlessly, "I'm starving to death. It's finally time for lunch. Hurry up, let's eat." A certain someone, after lunch, the beast taming competition began. He Xinjiu had already been in the limelight twice. She was prepared to listen to a certain someone and keep a low profile. Therefore, she obediently sat on the spectator stand and watched the competition. On the competition stage, there was a huge iron cage. Inside, there was a level 59 blazing red-tailed female wolf and a wolf cub, Lai Yen. The rules of the competition were also very simple. The contestant who could make the female wolf voluntarily hand over the wolf cub to him would be considered to have won the competition. Everyone couldn't help but shake their heads. This was too difficult. As everyone knew, the female wolf loved her cub very much. If they didn't have a cub, they might still have a glimmer of hope to contract the female wolf. However, in order to protect her cub from harm, it was impossible for the female wolf to take the initiative to establish a spiritual connection with someone, let alone hand over the cub. It was likely that none of the contestants on the competition stage would succeed. As expected, the contestants on the competition stage tried all kinds of methods of coercion and enticement, but they were unable to make the female wolf hand over her cubs. Those contestants also gave up. Since no one had succeeded, there was nothing to be embarrassed about. He Xinjiu curled her lips. What a bunch of trash. The pretty boy did not allow her to go on stage. Otherwise, he would have asked the female wolf to hand over the wolf cub at any moment. Just as this guy was thinking, he heard the crowd exclaim. She raised her head and looked up at the competition stage. She saw the 3 contestants from the Li Hate Palace placing dry firewood around the cage. They were actually going to light a fire to force the female wolf to hand over the wolf cub. The wolf cub was very afraid of the smoke. If it was not done properly, its eyes would be blinded by the smoke. The crowd shook their heads. Although this didn't violate the rules, since the female wolf had to hand over the wolf cub in order to protect the wolf cub's eyes, it was still a little too cruel. However, Jing Lidi and the others had a different feeling in their hearts. They felt that the Lihan Palace had set up this topic to shock them. The subtext was nothing more than that the Lihan Palace had many ways to force them to submit obediently. They didn't want to be forced to do things the hard way. It could also be understood that the hateful palace would use their children to force them. He Xinjiu blinked her eyes and looked at the expressions of Jing Lai Di and the others. She could roughly guess what they were thinking, so she stood up. She shouted coldly, "Stop! Aren't you guys being too wicked by doing this? Although they are demonic beasts, it is a mother's nature for a female wolf to protect her cubs. Aren't you afraid of being struck by lightning for doing this? Boom! A bolt of lightning struck the arena and struck the Li-Hate Palace contestant who was about to light the fire. Hey Shinjo, Io. Did she open her mouth today? The Li-Hate Palace contestant who had been struck by the lightning did not suffer any injuries, but she was extremely frightened. No matter who was struck by the lightning, they would still be scared, alright? Thus, for a moment, the three Li-Hate Palace contestants looked at each other, but none of them dared to light a fire. At this moment, the female wolf in the cage howled, but her gaze was directed in Hei Xinjia's direction. Hei Shinjo was so smart. She immediately understood that the female wolf was going to hand over the wolf cub to her, so she suppressed the excitement in her heart. She calmly asked, "Are you going to hand over the wolf cub to me? If you are, you can call out once. If not, you can call out twice. Howl." The female wolf called out. Hei Shinjo immediately smiled until her eyes curved. She jumped onto the competition stage and shamelessly put the female wolf, the wolf cub, and the cage into the spirit beast bag. Then, she spread her hands to the host. "Did you see that? The female wolf chose to hand over the wolf cub to me, so you can count the points on our East Phoenix country. You can all leave now." The host, everyone, this was too fucking mysterious, right? The beast taming competition ended just like that. Was this the female emperor of Zephyr taking advantage of them just like that? She had only smacked her lips a few times, and she had turned from a spectator into the champion. Emperor Jing Lai and the others counted with their fingers. Apart from the array competition, the other three competitions had actually all been won by the East Phoenix Kingdom. They had previously boasted shamelessly that the East Phoenix Kingdom was the weakest, but now, their faces were hurting. Now, only the armament refining and spirit power competition was left. No matter what, they could not let the East Phoenix Kingdom go, or else that little girl would have to fly into the sky. As the sky was already dark, the host announced that the competition for the day had ended and that the next day would continue. Thus, everyone returned to their respective encampments. After Hei Shinjo finished her dinner, she began to draw the shocking explosive talisman that she had just learned today without stopping. This fellow was afraid that Li-Hen Palace would make trouble after the grand meeting tomorrow, so it was better to make more preparations. Hei Shinjo wished that she could have a few more claws so that she could draw a few more. Moreover, she could continue to sharpen her cloud fishing hook. On the other hand, a certain venerable had an indifferent expression. His current situation was much better than when he had been hunted down by the 9 pavilions. He was completely confident that he could protect the little rascal, not to mention that the other 8 countries would most likely choose to ally with the East Phoenix Kingdom. The next day, during the artifact refining competition, Hei Shinjo was incomparably well behaved. Because this fellow was not good at it, she had no way of showing off. In the end, it was still the Li-Hen Palace that obtained the first place, the Hao Heavenly Kingdom that obtained the second place, and the East Phoenix Kingdom that steadily obtained the last place. Emperor Jing Lai and the others heaved a sigh of relief. As long as that girl did not participate, the East Phoenix Kingdom would definitely obtain the last place. After lunch, the final competition of the Spirit Stone Convention was also the highlight of the finale. What everyone did not expect was that the Li-Hen Palace did not send any participants to participate in the Spirit Power competition. Although everyone was somewhat puzzled, they did not have the time to think about it. This was because they were all attracted by the exciting duels on the competition stage. The Spirit Power competition was a drawing of lots to determine the winner. After an intense competition, 3 winners were finally decided. Of course, none of them were from the East Phoenix Kingdom. The subjects of the East Phoenix Kingdom didn't feel ashamed, but instead felt proud, because their emperor didn't go up. Their emperor must have been afraid that she would participate again, so he took all the first place. How could people from other countries live like this? Hei Shinjio touched her nose guiltily when she heard the discussions of the brainless fans. This other competition was fine, but this spiritual power competition, she could not do it. After all, she was only at the 5th level of the spirit transformation realm, and the people competing on the stage were mostly cultivators at the 4th or 5th level of the spirit transformation realm. Unless she was playing dirty, she would not be able to beat them. When everyone thought that the final 3 winners would draw lots for a duel, they didn't expect the host to say, the final 3 rankings will be decided by challenging the 10-sided 9-Earth Heavenly Fiend formation. 10-sided 9-Earth Heavenly Fiend formation. Everyone was somewhat at a loss. They had never heard of such a formation. Moreover, wasn't this a competition of spiritual power? Why did they still need to challenge the formation? Just as everyone was in a daze, they saw about 100 children jump onto the competition stage. Then, they stood in their respective positions and formed seals. After that, the array was formed. The crowd cried out in alarm. Someone recognized these children. They were the inner palace disciples that the Li-Hate Palace had chosen not long ago. Someone called out the names of those children loudly. Unfortunately, those children had a cold expression on their faces, as if they hadn't heard anything. Emperor Jing Lai and the others felt a buzzing sound in their heads. They finally knew the purpose of the Lihan Palace holding this spirit stone convention. This was a threat, a direct threat. No wonder, although the Lihan Palace recruited inner palace disciples once every 5 years, only a few of them remained after every round of selection. But this time, a total of 100 children were left behind. Originally, the various countries were still rejoicing, but they did not expect that the reason why the Li-Hate Palace had left behind so many children was to threaten them. Hei Xinjia's eyes flashed. She had already understood that although the Li-Hate Palace would select some children from the 9 countries to work in the Li-Hate Palace, the number was extremely small. It was probably because they were afraid of betraying the Li-Hate Palace. Then, the question came. Where did the people from the Li-Hate Palace come from? The answer was obvious. They were definitely from the 9 pavilions. They were all from the northern continent. No wonder the Li-Hate Palace's spiritual power and alchemy were stronger than the 9 nations. This was because even if the people from the northern continent were limited in their spiritual power when they arrived in the southern continent, they would still be higher than the average person. Then, what was the Li-Hate Palace's purpose in having these children set up the 10-directional 9-Earth Heaven Fiend array? Those children had clearly forgotten what had happened before and had become a killing machine loyal to the Li-Hate Palace. To use the safety of these children to threaten the emperors of the various countries? It was not to the extent. After all, there were only 100 children. How much could they threaten? It was likely that the final goal of the Li-Hate Palace was to intimidate them. As long as the Li-Hate Palace wanted to, they could turn the people of the 9 nations into puppets at any time. Just as Hei Shinjio was deep in thought, the host spoke again. The 3 contestants who can last the longest in the array formation will be the final winner. Although the 3 contestants on the stage were a little surprised to see these children, they still revealed contemptuous expressions when they heard the host's words. Most of these children's spiritual power was only at the level of spirit illusion. Although there were many of them. To them, it was just a piece of cake. Not to mention staying inside for a while, even breaking this array formation was very easy. Thus, one of the contestants casually entered the array formation through the life gate. However, when the array formation was activated, it was as if he was in purgatory. His surroundings were filled with a terrifying murderous aura. Let alone breaking the array formation, he would probably lose his life if he stayed for a while longer. He shouted in fear, "Let me out! Let me out! I admit defeat." However, those children did not open the door to life. They waved their hands non-stop, and everyone watched helplessly as that contestant bled to death in the formation. Everyone was in an uproar. What shocked them was not the death of that contestant, but the ruthlessness and indifference of those children. They had completely forgotten their parents and relatives, forgotten the honor and disgrace of their country. They had completely become the minions of the Li Hate Palace. The remaining two contestants looked at each other and saw the intention to retreat in each other's eyes. It was just a competition. They didn't want to lose their lives, so they all expressed their abstentions. The host was suddenly in a difficult position. With 1 dead and 2 abstentions, would the first place in the spirit energy competition be vacant? At this moment, a clear voice said, "Host, I am here to challenge the 10 Directions 9 Earth Heaven Carnage Array. If I break this array, will the first place in this spirit energy competition be given to our East Phoenix country?" Everyone followed the voice and looked over. The person who spoke was none other than the female emperor of Fenghua. This time, even the hardcore fans of East Phoenix country felt that their majesty was taking too much of a risk. That 10-directional 9 Earth Heavenly Fiend formation was clearly a little strange. If they were to enter, wouldn't they be courting death? Prime Minister Sima looked at a certain majesty with teary eyes, hoping that Di Biming would be able to stop their unreliable majesty. However, the certain emperor's expression was indifferent, showing no intention of stopping him. Prime Minister Sima was furious. Their emperor had already given birth to a child for him, and now he actually did not care about their emperor's life and death. What a heartbreaker. Just as the MC was unsure if he should agree to He Xinjia's request, an elder from the Li Hen Palace walked up to the stage and nodded at him. Hence, the MC then said, "Yes, Your Majesty Fenghua, please come up to the stage." He Xinjiu slowly walked up to the stage and did not immediately enter the 10 Directions 9 Earth Heavenly Fiend array. Instead, she stretched out her claws and poked the little faces of the children beside her. The children dodged her claws impatiently and glared at her fiercely. He Xinjiu did not mind and continued to poke at the children's little faces. The host could not stand it any more and coughed dryly, "Your Majesty Fenghua, shouldn't you enter the array formation? What's the rush? These children are all children of our 9 nations. Can't we be close to them?" The corners of the host's eyes twitched. Close to them? Poke their little faces? I've never seen anyone so close to them. After poking the little faces of more than 10 children, He Xinjiu narrowed her eyes. Guai Chao had basically determined the condition of these children. They were poisoned. Not only would it make these children forget what had happened before, but it would also greatly increase their spiritual energy in a short period of time. The consequence of doing so was that these children would become cold-blooded and bloodthirsty in the future, and their lifespans would be very short. What the Li Hen Palace did was really not human. Although the Guai Chao had determined the symptoms of these children, as the Guai Chao could not speak, He Xinjiu could only rely on guesses to communicate with it. It would still take some time before she could formulate an antidote. He Xinjiu rubbed her chin and thought for a moment. Some of the symptoms of these children were similar to amnesia. If she stimulated them with something that they had a deep memory of, perhaps they would regain their memories. Moreover, the closer it was to the time when they consumed the poison, the more effective it would be. He Xinjia's gaze fell on the 10 children standing in the southeast corner. Her eyes revealed a gaze like that of a big bad wolf. It was them. The children standing in the southeast corner shivered and they saw He Xinjiu looking at them. Why did the smile of the female emperor of Zephyr look so familiar? He Xinjiu thought of a countermeasure and said with a smile, "Come, little babies, open the life gate and let me in. I'm so beautiful, you must show mercy. Don't kill me." The audience couldn't help but frown. The Zephyr female emperor was probably not very clear-headed. Although these children were young, they had already become killing machines. It was like casting pearls before swine to tell them this. The children opened the gap in the array and He Xinjiu strolled in. However, as she walked in, she sang, "The king asked me to patrol the mountain and catch a monk for dinner. The water in this mountain stream is extremely sweet, everyone was dumbfounded. This female emperor of Zephyr must have gone crazy. She was still singing at this time. Besides, what nonsense was she singing? What did she mean by capturing a monk for dinner? Did she still want to eat people? As she sang, she took out a whip and swung it. She didn't look like she was going in to break into the formation, but more like she was going to herd sheep. What the crowd didn't notice was that the 10 children standing in the southeast corner couldn't help but tremble when they heard He Xinjia's song and the sound of the whip. Especially one of the taller and stronger children and the other one with delicate features. Their faces were full of fear, and some scenes flashed through their minds. A little girl was waving the whip and instructing them to do this and that, whipping them whenever there was a disagreement. Along with these scenes, some familiar people and scenes flashed through their minds again. They could not help but hug their heads and crouch on the ground in pain, wailing in agony. He Xinjiu shrugged her shoulders. She had only sang once and it was already effective. Xiao Hanio in the spirit beast pouch silently complained. Even if these children had been poisoned and lost their memories, they were easily reminded of the past that was unbearable to recall. What did this mean? This meant that Master He Xian had clearly become a nightmare for those children. The 10 directions 9 Earth Heavenly Fiend formation had to be formed by 100 children. If 10 of them were in trouble, the formation would naturally be unable to take effect. Therefore, He Xinjiu relied on a song, to break the formation. The people below the stage were completely dumbfounded. This worked. Breaking the formation with a few strokes of the whip after singing a song. Was this a joke? He Xinjiu walked to the 10 children in the southeast corner. She said indifferently, "Have you remembered something now? I'm the female emperor of the Juntian kingdom. If you want to go home, I can take you back." Although the children hadn't completely remembered something, they remembered their parents at home and the poison they drank. They immediately burst into tears. "We were fed with poison, so we don't remember anything. Your Majesty, save us. Save us. Sob, sob, I miss my mother. I don't want to enter the palace of hatred anymore. It's full of demons. They have been making us kill people. If we don't listen, they will stab us with knives and burn us with iron. I want to go home. Sob, sob, I want to go home." When the other children heard the words of these 10 children, their faces revealed a confused and pained expression. It was obvious that they had also thought of a few things. Yun Chujia's gaze suddenly became fierce as she looked at Emperor Jinglai and the others. As the emperors of the 8 nations, do you still have to endure the abuse of the children under your rule by the Lihen Palace? When Emperor Jinglai and the others heard those children's words, their hearts were already filled with anger. Now that they heard Empress Jiu's questioning, the 8 of them stood up at the same time and looked in the direction of the Lihen Palace Master. The Lihen Palace Master frowned slightly. The plan had originally been very thorough, but now, the matter had completely deviated from the original expectations. However, he was confident that these monarchs would not dare to fall out with the Lihen Palace in public. After all, the Lihen Palace had a strong reputation, and there were many imperial advisors sent by the Lihen Palace among the various countries. The Lihen Palace Master said indifferently, "I will thoroughly investigate this matter and give an explanation to your 9 countries. You can take these children back." When Emperor Jinglai and the others heard the Lihen Palace Master's words, they immediately became terrified. They sat back in their seats embarrassedly, as if nothing had happened. He Xinjiu had long expected this, so she only snorted coldly and said to the 10 devilish children in the southeast corner, "Let's go. I'll bring you home." The 10 devilish children immediately wiped their tears and followed He Xinjiu down the competition stage. For some reason, they felt that this Emperor Fenghua was somewhat similar to that little devil. However, it had to be said that even that little devil was 100 times better than the people of the Lihen Palace. The people of the Lihen Palace were simply devils. He Xinjiu handed the 10 devilish children to her subordinates and then returned to her seat. Jing Lai Di and the others looked embarrassed. They knew that their actions were a little cowardly, but what could they do? The Li Hate Palace was too powerful. If they didn't have a foolproof plan, they wouldn't dare to go against the Li Hate Palace. The children on the competition stage had already been brought back by people from various countries. The host looked in the direction of the Li Hate Palace in confusion. Since the competition had ended, shouldn't the final results be announced? The bad thing was that he had just counted with his fingers and realized that the East Phoenix Kingdom was probably the first place in the overall score. After all, the female emperor of Zephyr had relied on her own strength to obtain several first places. Very soon, an elder of the Li Hate Palace came over and indicated for him to announce the results truthfully. The host heaved a sigh of relief and quickly announced the results of the competition. The East Phoenix Kingdom was indeed the first place, and it even had several dozen points more than the second place, the Li Hate Palace, to say nothing of the other 8 countries. The Lihan Palace was quite straightforward. As expected, they distributed the few mineral veins to the top 3 kingdoms. Among them, the East Phoenix Kingdom obtained 5 mineral veins in one go. Yun Chujiu curled her lips. Did they intend to make the East Phoenix Kingdom the target of envy and jealousy, and then attack them together? In their dreams. Then, the Spirit Stone Convention ended without any awkwardness. Emperor Jing Lai and the others were at a loss. He Xinjia's ability at the Spiritual Stone Convention had tempted them, but when they thought about the terrifying strength of the Lihan Palace and the national masters in their own country, they felt that even if the 9 countries were to form an alliance, they wouldn't be able to defeat the Lihan Palace. Just as they were at a loss, the people of the Lihan Palace came to their tent and asked them about their final decision. This time, they were not as polite as last time. There was a hint of threat in their words. If they made Lihan Palace unhappy, then the imperial advisors would spread bad rumors about their royal family. They would not be able to sit firmly on the throne of emperor. Emperor Jing Lai and the others were both angry and afraid. They could only agree to send troops to attack the East Phoenix Kingdom as soon as they returned to the country. After He Xinjiu heard the report from the Spirit Bee, the corners of her mouth curled up. The people of the Lihan Palace were really a godlike ally. At first, Emperor Jing Lai and the others were still hesitant, but they forced them to rebel. However, they couldn't blame the Lihan Palace. After all, they didn't put the 9 nations in their eyes and thought that the 9 nations didn't have the courage to fight back. Unfortunately, they had overlooked one thing. When a person was in a desperate situation, they would instead burst out with unprecedented courage. He Xinjia's eyes rolled and she eagerly approached Di Baiming. Prince Charming, can you help me send a message to those 8 idiots? Let them personally lead an army to attack the East Phoenix country in a few days. When Prime Minister Sima heard her words, he almost cried. Had their emperor gone mad? Shouldn't they be discussing how to stop the 8 kingdoms from forming an alliance? Why did they still ask the 8 monarchs to personally lead an army to attack the East Phoenix Kingdom? Di Baiming, on the other hand, indifferently nodded his head. He knew why Yun Chujiu asked him to deliver the letter. It was because he had the highest spiritual power. Only by delivering the letter would the people of the Lihan Palace not discover it. That night, Di Baiming did as he was told and sent the note that Yun Chujiu had written to Emperor Jing Lai and the others. When Emperor Jing Lai and the others saw a certain deity standing by their bed without them knowing, they were all scared out of their wits. How could they not agree? They sent a certain deity away in fear and trepidation, as if they were sending off their ancestors. The next morning, the various countries set off to leave. He Xinjiu thought that the Lihan Palace would not let her leave just like that. As expected, when they arrived at a valley that they had to walk through, the Lihan Palace surrounded the ruler and officials of the East Feng Kingdom. The leader was none other than the one who instigated Emperor Xiaoxian, Elder Zhu. Hei Xinjiu rubbed her hands in excitement. It had been a long time since she was tortured, and she was almost suffocated to the point of turning into a mushroom. Moreover, she didn't need to hide her strength and bide her time. She could show off as much as she wanted, and she could use these people to have fun. Thus, this fellow waved his hand at the people behind him. You guys don't need to do anything first. I'll go meet them. The brainless fans of the East Phoenix Kingdom looked at each other. Although their empress had a belly full of evil tricks and was very talented in alchemy, she was only at the 5th level of the spirit transformation realm after all. How could this be possible? The people of the Li Hate Palace did not even look at Hei Xinjiu. Did this female emperor of Zephyr really think highly of herself? If not for the palace head's strict orders to keep her alive, she would not have been killed. Hei Xinjiu walked to the front with her hands behind her back. She looked at the people of the Li Hate Palace and said pretentiously, "Do you want to fight one-on-one or together?" PA and NOV1. The people of the Li Hate Palace immediately burst out laughing. This female emperor of Zephyr was most likely not very smart. Elder Zhu looked at Di Baiming behind Yun Chujio with fear. This man was the main target of their operation this time. As for the female emperor of Zephyr, she was not even worth mentioning. Since she was looking for trouble, he would grant her her wish. Elder Zhu pointed at a random person. "Zhou Hao, I'll leave him to you." "Yes, master." An ordinary-looking man walked up to Yun Chujio and sneered. "Female Emperor of Zephyr, I advise you to surrender. Otherwise, you will suffer." Hei Xinjiu raised her hand and shot several bolts of lightning at the man. "Cut the crap. Don't you know that there's a saying that goes, don't talk when you can? Watch my thunder." Shui Wuji almost burst into laughter. It would have been fine if someone else had said don't talk when you can, but didn't little sister Jiu feel that she was slapping her own face by saying that? When did she not rely on her words to win a fight? You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.